Hi, I'm Ashley from Sunny Made, and today we are going to learn how to make no-waste flying geese. Welcome back. We're on week 2 of our second block. Last week we learned how to make our 4-patch here. Today we're going to make what I'm calling no waste flying geese. If you're here for the quilt along, welcome. If you're here just to make flying geese, that's great too. So we are going to make a new kind of flying geese. We're going to call them no waste. Last time we did the stitch and flip, and we trimmed off those corners and we actually had waste. So we're gonna make them without that. Today, what you'll need, fabric wise, you're going to need a 7.5 inch background fabric. Finish size again, 3.5 by 6.5 is our unfinished size of our flying geese. So we need 1 square, I had 2 there, 1 square that is 7.5 by 7.5 inches of your background. That's the part that is gonna do this part of your flying geese, okay? So the star legs, I gave myself a little bit of wiggle room on this, so I actually made these 4.25. 4.25, yes. 4.25 by 4.25 inch squares. You're gonna need 4 of them. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. You're gonna need a ruler that is at least 6.5 inches by 3.5 inches so we can square. It's really nice if you have one that has a diagonal. I'm gonna go into more detail next week on how to trim your flying geese. But you will need a square, you're gonna need your cutting mat, and you're gonna need your rotary tool. Oh, and a marking pen. A pencil is just fine, or if you're using a lighter color, you could use either a chalk pencil, or I have one that I use, and then when I iron it, it irons off. So let's get started on our no waste flying geese. We wanna start by ironing our fabric so it's nice and flat and it's easy to use. We are going to put, you know what, let's start by we're going to draw a line from corner to corner on each of our colored fabrics, and that'll just be easier that way. I'm using, it's called a friction fine liner. It's erasable. So what this does is, it's by Pilot. What this does is once you use your iron, it erases the line. And this is actually good on a lot of different colors. Whoops. Make sure you don't do that. All right, and our last one. Okay, we're going to take our white fabric and we are going to place our first one right here. And I actually like to pin these ones so that the squares stay in place. We're going to take a second one and place it on the opposite corner. So our line is going diagonal to diagonal, and it's lining up perfectly right here in the middle. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch down each side of the line. You wanna sew on both sides of the line. Let me give you a few tips when you go to sew this. First, if you start here, so that you are going over the top of the edge of this instead of trying to So this way your foot might get caught if you're going this way. So start at the top here, come all the way down. And then what I do, instead of cutting the thread, I just pick up the foot and I rotate it, and then I go down the other side. So if you'll notice here, it's just been looped around the top. So now that that one is, oh, I need a bigger one. Hold on. So now that it's sewn, we're going to place our ruler on that line that we drew on each of the blocks, and we are going to trim it right down the center. So when we pull it apart, this is what we have. Okay, this is what it looks like. Then we're going to take it to the ironing board. Pull over my ironing mat. Okay, set that seam. We are going to finger press it open to give it that nice straight line. And then go over it. We're going to do that with our second one. Set the seam. Finger press it. And then iron it. Okay, then we're gonna take, grab my pins again, our next set, and we're gonna put it this way on this corner. And if you'll look, you'll see that the line runs up and down. I'm gonna go ahead and pin this one into place. Do my second one. Don't want to catch that mat underneath. Okay, then we are going to sew once again down each side of that line. I would start from this end. Okay, pick up the foot and then go right back down this end. The seam should catch right here. That 1/4 inch should be right here where both of those colors meet your fabric together. Okay, we have our 2 pieces. We sewed down each side of that line. We are now going to cut down that line. If I can pick up my ruler. And then it's time to iron. Okay, we're going to set that seam again. I want to make sure I have a nice iron. We're going to open that up, finger press it. And get that open. Now, I would like to point out something. I actually do my colored pieces a little bit bigger than most people do on this. I want to make sure I have enough to trim because I want to make sure that they come out the right size. So if you go online and you look at charts, people have charts for these. They will have you a 7.5 inch for the background and a 4 1/8 for the colored. I did the 7.5 for the background, but instead of, I think these ended up being 4.5 or 4 1/4. I think they're 4.5. Can't remember now that I trimmed, or I cut them now. So they are 4.5 inches, which gives me lots of room to work with. One last final. My steam doesn't seem to be quite working on my iron. Okay, so when you're done making your flying geese, you should end up with 4 of these. Now these aren't trimmed yet, but you should have 4 of them. and out of the 1 white background square and the 4 squares. And because we're making 1, 2, 3, 4, you don't only have to do 1 set. Now next week we are going to go over how to trim them. So make sure you have your rotary cutter that is nice and sharp, and either a square or something that has some sort of ruler that has a diagonal line. That'll make it super easy to trim them up. Okay, if you have any questions about how to make the no waste flying geese, as you notice, we didn't trim off the corner, which is why it makes it a no waste. We are going to do a little trimming at the end to get it down to size, but other than that, it's almost perfect size. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below and I'll come back and answer them. Thanks, have a good day.